Hello, beautiful people, and welcome, to Furina First Impressions. So, as some of you might be aware, we finally got our first leaks for Furina's kit, and as some of you might also be aware, there's a lot of talk about her, and I am here to set the record straight about a few things. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Neuvillette pre-release video was taken down by Hoyoverse because they submitted a fraudulent copyright strike when the video is very clearly fair use. So it's kind of stressful because 3 of those copyright strikes and my channel gets deleted. I'm gonna try my best to be extra careful to not include anything that could even remotely be considered even fair use of copyright material, just no copyright material whatsoever. So the visuals might be a little bit different than they usually are. Sorry about that. So, basically, her kit is kind of a weird, slightly different version of Yelan, right? That's what it boils down to. Her normal attack is mostly normal, but she has her Arca, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that one, I'm sorry. Either Pneuma or Uzia, and she actually has both. And whenever you charge attack, it changes her current alignment, and her normal attacks can deal like alignment damage. Effectively, right, she has the Arca mechanic on her normal attacks up to once every 6 seconds, but she can charge attack to change her alignment from Uzia to Pneuma or the other way around. One thing that is worth mentioning though, and which matters a little bit more when it's a normal attack, is that the hydro damage that you deal with this doesn't actually apply hydro. It's a zero unit hydro application, which means it doesn't apply hydro or trigger reactions. Like, it's not going to help application. It's literally just for the Uzia or Pneuma thing. It does incredibly minor damage. It doesn't apply element. It's only for that. Now we get into the actual brunt of the kit. Salon Solitaire invites the guests of the Salon Solitaire to come forth and abet in Furina's performance. They will summon either the Salon members or the singers of the streams based on her current Arca alignment. In other words, she either deals damage or heals based on her current alignment, and again, you can change her alignment with her charge attack. If you're Uzia, it deals damage. If you're Pneuma, it heals. If you are doing the Pneuma thing, you're not really getting hydro application, which means that in most situation, this is mostly going to be used with the Uzia alignment, and when you need healing, you'll go to Pneuma. But as we're going to see later, you're very heavily incentivized to use her with other healers. Anyways, Uzia. Foaming bubbles like a celebrant's shall dance, dealing AoE hydro damage based on Furina's max HP, and summoning 3 Salon members. The bald octopus-shaped Gentilhomme Usher, the bubbly seahorse-shaped Surintendante Cheval Marin, and the armored crab-shaped Mademoiselle Crabaletta. They will attack nearby opponents at intervals, prioritizing the target of the active character, dealing hydro damage based on Furina's max HP. When they attack, if characters with more than 50% HP are nearby, the members will consume these characters' HP and increase their current attack's power based on the number of characters who have offered HP this way, 10% per character. So, they deal damage off field. Now, we don't actually know how often they attack. So far, I've been assuming, well, there's 3 different ones. I've been assuming that they attack one at a time, each every 3 seconds, so you get 1 attack every second. I think that makes a lot of sense, and that is what I would expect, but it is very possible that it's more or less. So if you see anyone claiming Furina's the best character in the game or Furina's dog shit, just keep in mind, we don't actually know yet how fast her attacks are, and if you don't know how fast her attacks are, it's impossible to be confident in how strong she's going to be. We also don't know the gauge application. Now, the default gauge application is usually 1 unit, and assuming that they don't share ICD between the different ones, which they probably don't, standard ICD would make it so that if they are attacking once per second, it will always apply hydro, right? Like each one every 3 seconds, but in total once a second. I think it's possible that maybe one of them or all of them applies more than 1 unit, but for now I've just been assuming 1 unit of hydro. Obviously the damage numbers, right, it's about 10, about 5, about 15, alternating, and then this is increased by up to 40% when your party is above 50% HP. There would be about 14, a little bit over 7, around 20-ish. It's pretty easy to compare it to Yelan because she is also off-field HP scaling damage. And if you do compare it to Yelan, you'll notice that it's basically worse. You're getting less damage than you are with Yelan. However, it's on skill, which means that it's easier to get reliably. And the duration is 30 seconds with a 20-second cooldown, which means that it's very easy to have 100% uptime. Obviously, you can't have over 100% uptime. You won't be able, as far as I'm aware at least, to have 2 sets of Salon members at the same time. And Yelan isn't that far away from 100% uptime, so it's still not that much of an increase on that front, but it definitely can be. Okay, so her damage on skill is basically just Yelan but worse, kinda. Is it AoE? Well, the initial hit is AoE. After that, though, it doesn't actually mention AoE, so it's very likely that it is not, and that it is single target. And if that's all she had, then yeah, she'd basically just be worse Yelan. But it's not all she has, she also has a burst. So let's take a look at the burst. Rouses the impulse to revel, creating a stage of foam that will deal AoE hydro damage based on Furina's max HP, and cause all party members to enter the universal revelry state. During this time, when nearby party members' HP increases or decreases, they will grant Furina 1 fanfare point based on the percentage by which their max HP changed. In other words, if you have a character that takes 20% of their HP, you gain 20 stacks. If they heal for 20% of their HP, you gain 20 stacks. Any variation in character HP, whether you lose HP or gain HP, for each 1% that's changed, you gain 1 stack. At the same time, Furina will increase the damage dealt by an incoming healing bonus of all nearby party members based on the amount of fanfare she has. When the duration ends, Furina's fanfare points will be cleared. She has a limit, right? The maximum is 450, and for each point of fanfare, you gain 0.21% damage bonus. At 450 stacks, that's gonna be around 95% damage bonus. We don't have the numbers on Crown yet. I would assume around 100%. Although it might be more because the fanfare limit might actually go up as well. Now that's a lot of damage bonus. However, and this is actually a pretty big deal, you are not gonna max this out. Let's go through the multiple factors that are gonna prevent you from maxing this out. Number 1, you don't start gaining fanfare stacks before you use burst. You start gaining them after you use burst, which means even if you can get maximum fanfare, it won't be maximum for all of the uptime, only for the later part of the uptime. Now, how early you can get there depends on the team. Number 2, 450% of your team's max HP is your whole team dying. No, but if your whole team takes 100% of their health, that's 400 stacks. Now, assuming again that your E attacks once per second, or each different animal attacks once every 3 seconds, you could potentially get about 40% of your health consumed on your whole team by your E, which is 160 stacks. Now, if you also heal that back up, that's another 160 stacks. So 320. That's pretty nice. But you don't start low HP, you start max HP, which means that for your first rotation, you start at 0 stacks and then you just gain stacks over time. But then if you heal at the end of the duration, you're gonna have incredibly little uptime with high stacks. So you might want to hold off and use your heal at the beginning of your second rotation, right after using Furina's burst. Obviously, this is also going to synergize incredibly well with characters who can consume their own HP reliably. So either with Bloom or with characters like Neuvillette, for example. Neuvillette consumes about 50% of his health and then heals back up about 50% of his health every charge attack. And he can do about 3 charge attacks a rotation, which is 300 stacks. Paired with the self-damage from this thing to the team, you've basically maxed out the passive. There are some characters that are going to struggle to consistently maintain a lot of stacks. So if you look, for example, at Hu Tao teams, the baseline Hu Tao teams tend to not run a healer, which means, while your first rotation might be all fine and dandy, if you're not healing the rest of your team, they'll be at 60% of their health for the second rotation. And then they can only lose 10% from Furina's E before they stop losing HP, which means that from the second rotation onwards, the amount of damage that you'd be getting from the fanfare would be pretty much gone. If you use single target healers like Bennett, you'd only really be healing your Hu Tao because you don't want to spend valuable Bennett uptime on non-Hu Tao characters. You don't want to waste that attack buff. You could use a character like Jean, but it's pretty difficult to reliably get a Pyro Swirl if you're using 2 Hydro units with Jean, so you'd have to go like a usual VVV. In other words, right, it's going to affect the way that you have to think about your teams. You're going to have to think about it in the way of like, okay, how can I actually reliably get a lot of stacks on this? Because here's the thing, if you don't get a lot of stacks on this, if you're playing a team without a healer that just once your characters reach 50% HP, they stop giving you stacks, well, this character's not that great. Now, obviously, you can change her skill mode to the healing mode. And if you look at the amount of healing, it's actually pretty decent. But it only heals the active character, and it's also very possible that the healing is slower than the damage. Because the damage has 3 different summons, right? 3 different things attacking. For the healing, there's only 1. So it's very possible that it's 3 times slower. All in all, before we get any reliable footage, it's going to be very difficult to properly gauge how strong she's going to be. My expectation is that the things are going to attack once per second, and that in most teams, it's really going to be a question of, can I reliably make use of the elemental burst? How many stacks can I get, and how early into my rotation can I get those stacks? If it's a lot and early, she's going to be very good, because it's not just a buff to the active character. The damage buff is to the whole party. If it's late into your rotation, it's pretty shit. And then if we are assuming that it attacks once per second, then this is kind of just worse than Yelan. However, you still have the upside that, okay, well, it is skill reliant. So if I can't really get the burst at all, I could just use her as a character that doesn't burst, only with the skill. And maybe in some teams where I don't generate a lot of energy, where Yelan would have to build like 220, 230 energy recharge to be able to get her burst back, because it's so much energy recharge that I'd have to build on Yelan. If I were to use Furina and not give her any ER, because I don't need her burst, it might perform better. There's also going to be teams where you probably play her with Yelan or with Xingqiu. I think it's a very interesting kit. We can also very quickly read the Ascension Passives. When the active character in your party receives healing, if the source of healing is not Furina and the healing overflows, so if you overheal with a healer that isn't Furina, Furina will heal a nearby party member for 2% of their max HP. Now, it's not all nearby, so it's one nearby party member. I think it's going to be random. It's very unclear. I'm gonna wait to see how that actually works. It's alright, but it's not that big. And then Ascension 4. Every 1,000 points of HP can buff the skill in different ways. Increases damage for the damage and decreases the healing interval for the healers, so how fast they heal. Up to 28% damage, so you can get a bunch of damage percent from this. Now with this, and with the fact that she's a mostly skill-focused character that is going to realistically in a lot of teams want to be using Golden Troop, there's very much an incentive not to run a Hydro Goblet because you have so much damage percent. And I've run the calcs, and it seems like in most situations, HP Goblet is going to be more damage than Hydro Goblet. Now, it's not by an incredibly huge margin, so if you get a really good Hydro Goblet, keep it. But if you get an HP Golden Troop Goblet with decent substats, just know that it might be pretty good on Furina. But yeah, all in all, this is a very interesting kit. I personally find it more boring than the kit that I made for Furina back in the April Fool's video. But hey, it is what it is. I think they did manage to make a kit where they can actually have situations where this character will be better than the other Hydro options, like Yelan and Xingqiu, without actually making the character overall stronger. Making Furina incredibly synergistic with healers not only is really good for staying true to the identity of Hydro, right? I think Hydro's been associated with healing ever since 1.0, but it also is a really good way to balance her and have niches where she's really good without just being power creep. Now, obviously, again, we don't actually know how fast she attacks, so it's still possible she will be power creep, but I'm guessing she won't be because this design allows for that, and I think that's very interesting. I think that's really cool. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will still be doing the pre-release, obviously, but in the meantime, I just figured I've seen a lot of pretty horrendous takes on her, and I figured I'd give my very early thoughts. I'd get them out there early. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, YouTube.